So I'm gonna talk about building enterprise apps. It's not really enterprise apps. It's more about non-consumer based apps. So it's something that you will normally not use yourself. It will be something that a guy building a house would use. It will be something like a lawyer would use. It's something more for work, like Xcode, for example. So Xcode is something developers use, but normal people will never have to use something like this. Okay, so I'll start a little bit how we work. It's a little bit in a much more simple way because it's a bit of a short time. So we're just two guys. We do the design in Germany and I do the development in Copenhagen. And I'm here visiting you. So why enterprise app is actually pretty fun. It's not actually something really boring as you might expect, because it's really like if you are used to, I don't know, I'm not gonna talk about Android, but if you are used to the iOS and you are used to building great apps, and once you start using those kind of business-facing apps, like if you go to a supermarket and you just try to take a glance on what they're using, it looks like shit, and it's kind of annoying to have to deal with all this software, and it's actually maybe you will look at this software 10 hours a day, and your Facebook, which you talk to people, is looks much nicer than this. So it's really one nice how do you call this? There's so much ideas in this market, and because most of the developers like us, and I'm sure maybe, I don't know, most of you are focused on personal needs, because it's also common because you see the world from your own point of view and you want to solve your own problems. You will normally not get out of your way to try to think about other people's problems and how can you solve it for them. But it's really, really nice because currently now the App Store is saturated with all this, I don't know, not simple, but like your simple basic need apps, and whatever idea you come up with, you will find another 10, 20 apps doing the same thing. So it's a really great way to start a new business and get into the App Store this way. Okay, so and it's quite fun to solve something new for a change instead of a to-do app, and I did make a to-do app. And it's quite fun because you start to solve things that you will normally never solve, like physics or mathematics or financial problems or things like this, which you'll normally never have to deal with. It's quite fun also to expand your experience about everything, because if you try to, I don't know, talk to someone building houses or somebody, I don't know, a cashier in the supermarket, their entire world is they see the world different than you. We live in this kind of tech bubble and we don't try to get out of it to see what everybody else is doing. And I think it's quite important because we're supposed to solve this right now with software. This is you always read this about in, like, if you read, I don't know, Y Combinator, this Launchpad, or if you read any kind of Silicon Valley crap, it's always like this. You need to know the problem, you need to have this certain need to build this something amazing, and so forth. But of course this is true in a way, but I don't know, in this way we would have never had cars, we would have never had planes, we would have never had rockets, because you'll say, oh, I'm never gonna go home with a rocket, so why the fuck would I build a rocket? Or I will never launch a satellite, I'm not gonna use the satellite for my own communication. So it's quite important to solve other problems that you will normally not, at least directly, have yourself. And this is a bit cliche, but it's quite important because as a whole, we try to push forward with technology. You try to build new robots, you try to make transportation easier, you try to book everything now from your phone. Everything have to push forward, and when you go to the business world, they don't push as consumer-based apps, because mostly because of us, because we are just focused on our own needs and on our own experience. So that's why enterprise is quite fun. And why is it different than normal apps? Well, first you have to basically fit the app to their flow. So you, like, I don't know, like for example, Naeem makes a exercising app, and it's very easy for him to think how would he exercise. But if you're building for a lawyer, you will have to fit it in his work, because people are usually resistant to change, and they're also resistant to technology. So you try to make it a little bit easier. You try to introduce it a little bit slowly, then, just make a nice, super easy solution, but it's not the way he's used to. It could be faster. It could make it what he does in 10 days. It could make it in 1 hour, but he will never understand it because it doesn't work in the way he's used to. Some people will do this job for 20 years, and you try to change the way they do a job. Of course you can, but you need to do it gradually. So it's also interesting because you will have to learn his job. Like whatever person is doing the job, you have to learn the job. If it's a lawyer, you need to understand about law. You need to understand how they do their papers, how do they handle clients, everything. So because you basically need to put yourself in their shoes. Sometimes your users are not really tech people, so you cannot tell the guy, use JSON. What the fuck is this? So you have to also keep this in mind. It's not like normal consumers. This also applies to consumers, but maybe now because everybody uses the phones for everything, it's a little bit different. There are some business people that they will just pick up the phone to call and close. Stability matters a lot because it's an app that you don't open for 10 minutes. It's an app that you would open for 6 hours, and you'll open it most probably every single day. And you depend on this for your job. It's also an app you will normally never have to use. So that puts a lot of quite a fun problems to solve, because you'll have to observe how the users are using, what kind of problems they are having. It's also, this is quite fun because this is also a business opportunity, because time in the price is really money. It's immediately money. Like we built the concert app, and to save 1 hour of time, you would save around 200 hours of paid work, just 1 hour, because you have so much people working on the single project, and you save 1 hour, will solve all this massive time. So this is quite important, that when you try to solve something, you try to speed it up, even slightly, even 10 minutes will multiply. Accessibility and user experience is really important. I mean, this is mostly also for all apps, but there are lots of people who are old in enterprise, and they don't want to keep squinting at your screen, and so you have to use stuff like dynamic fonts, to use accessibility and things like this. So if you have a bug, it's a big problem. I mean, if your Facebook crash, okay. But if your app that you use for work crashes, that's it. Your day is fucked, and you have to call people, and you have to see how things go, and it's so that's quite complicated. So, and this is also reliability. So you have to really test and test and test, and you have to test all the way, because it's different again. A crash is a big problem. Either you lose valuable data or you lose time, and time is even worse. Again, think about it when you are building Xcode. You can think that you keep swearing at your laptop, and you are angry when you see this thing rotating, the lovely balloon. So imagine if somebody is on location, and he's in a stadium, or he's in the street, and then somehow his app crashes and he doesn't know what to do. So that's a really big problem. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some app we're building, and I will talk about how we approach the app totally from the zero, from the idea all the way to the finished product. So we're building currently something called HYPERLAY. This is in Royal Arena in Copenhagen, and basically the app calculates how the entire show is lifted up. subwoofers, the lights, the entire setup of the show. So currently, the app set up all the shows for all these bands so far. They've been quite fun to see all that. And currently, we're still testing it for almost 1 year. We used it maybe after I made this presentation, like more than 50 shows, mostly in here in Malmö as well, the Malmö Arena, and in Copenhagen, and in Norway. We saved almost 800 hours of manual work.
And it was used in the funky concert in Copenhagen?
Yeah. So right now, any concert you go to Malmö, our app is used there. This is like almost 5 months of full-time labor. One person just sitting there and working for 5 months, and the app now saved this. And this was in the beta time. After now it's released, then it will be much more than that. It's been so far like almost 1 year. We've been working on this like for 1 year, or almost 1 year, like 2 months. And hopefully soon we're gonna be able to finally release it in the App Store. Okay, so let's say that we start from the zero. How would we build a very complicated enterprise app? So first, guy comes, or you have some certain idea about this, and you need to somehow start to evaluate your idea. So the first thing that you need to understand is that there's feasibility, because maybe, I don't know, a doctor comes and tells you, oh, I want an app that can classify diseases or something like this. So there's a certain complexity to some things that you cannot solve currently with software, or when you solve it will be either super expensive or it will not really pay off. How long it will take, because you don't want to spend something in 5 years or 6 years building and then it will be obsolete after you do that. It's expensive. This is also very important, because software is expensive and it takes time, and you need to make sure that the person you are dealing with understands this, because most people in enterprise or non-tech people, they will not understand how complicated software is and how time consuming it can be. And you always need to ask the person, why do you want to build this? Why do you think this needs to exist? And this is also quite interesting. If you're an engineer, it's important to find this actually a fun idea to work on, because you're gonna work on something you will never use and you never see like by yourself. So it's quite important that you work on something that you find quite exciting to solve. Like the SpaceX guys, they are super excited to launch rockets, and they will go every day happy that they are working on something like this, but they will actually never go to the launch pad, they will never sit on a rocket, and most probably none of them will ever go to Mars. Okay, so now after you decide on the idea, you find this is quite awesome, this is feasible, this is not gonna be super expensive, we can actually do this. Then you start actually taking a field trip. So if it's a supermarket, go to the supermarket. If it's a lawyer, you go to the office. In our case, we went to forum, like first time. I just went to forum to see how they do what they do. And when you go to this field trip, I took notes about everything, even what they eat, when do they eat, how long do they eat, because it makes a difference. Because if your app needs to work on phases, they need to understand that there is like a break in the middle. So how can you break this flow in your app? How do they load in the equipment? When do they load it? Things like this. So you really need to try to understand basically their entire business and write all this down. I need to ask questions, because in business, and I think it's also in software and mostly in everything, that we are really creatures of habit. So sometimes you are stuck. You know, for me, I like model view control, for example. I will always use model view control because it's very easy. It's stupid. It's super easy to understand, and I've been using this for ages. So there's no brain to it. It might be wrong, but this kind of hardwired to habit is in everything. So it's in business. It's also the same. So you will find that they will always put boxes, for example, in a certain corner in the arena, just because I don't know, 5 years ago, one guy decided to put it there. But this is not really the optimal location for something like this. So if you ask questions, if you try to ask him, why do you do this? Sometimes they just look at you, I don't know. So this is quite important. It's also very important to understand how they do their workflow, because as I said, you need to fit the app or your software into their workflow. So you need to understand how they start things, how do they add things, how do they think about stuff. You need to take pictures and videos and pretty much kind of make a small documentary. Okay, that's quite fun as well. You can try to do their job. So actually, when I go to the arenas, I actually work. So it's quite fun. So I actually start to assemble the equipment myself. I try to put them up myself, connect the motors, subwoofers, and things like this. They also tend to somehow like you because I don't know. It's like anything in life. If somebody try to show interest in your work and try to do what you do, it's much easier to communicate like this. If you are a business guy, please send your developers and designers to the field as well, because they are the guys that's gonna build this kind of software. So it's important to get a feeling for the place where it's used. And you can annotate things on the spot, because you'll always forget names and acronyms and what does this do and how do they do things. So, for example, I took this like 1.5 years ago, and I just in this case they were measuring some distance, so they just put a laser at one point and then they shoot lasers to the roof, and then they try to find the location of some certain things. And I annotate as well because I didn't know what certain equipment are called, and I use the sketch app for this. Alright, so you went to the field, you know what they do, you have notes about everything, and now you somehow want to come up with a solution, but in a very very stupid and fast solution. So you can start by a really easy but totally abnormal situation, that you actually give the guy a paper and tell him how would you imagine this software would be like. You'll obviously have no idea what's iOS, you will have no idea what's buttons, what is everything, but you will have some idea what could software do for him. It will normally never look like the actual software, but it's very important to get a feeling of of the expectations about the software. You need to trust people, because if you work with people, they are also good in what they do. I mean, you are a good software engineer, they are good in their jobs. You would consider all those are, I don't know, they are idiots, they don't understand what they're doing, but they are good in what they do. And it's important to try to understand that it's different. So people that don't know how to use software, it doesn't mean that they're stupid. It simply means that they're good in something else. It's also quite a useful question all the time. Just ask people to draw stuff. It'll draw stupid shapes, but it's always useful. It's always makes communication much easier. And it's sometimes easier to just tell them, okay, show me this. Like you try to explain something in drawing and it doesn't make sense, but then you just tell them, okay, show me this, like the physical thing. So this is basically how I told him, imagine how the app would look like. And he actually sat on his iPad, and there's a mocking app, and this is somehow what he came up with. Now when you try, the designer needs to start work on the mockup. You really don't want to make something like this. That's a really waste of time. Yeah. It's pretty, and designers will always do this, but just tell your designer, please don't do this. You need something really just like totally bare bone and totally stupid, just to get a certain feeling for what kind of component should be there. So just to come back to what I got from the client and what the app actually looked like. So you'll see that it has somehow the essence of what he wanted. It's not closely remotely the same. The way he wanted switch units, we put it on the top. We organized those two types of wire in this certain way. The checkbox came to a cell. So you see that it's not the same, but it makes a huge difference to get a feeling for what he would expect. All right, now comes to the design phase. Now you have a nice mock-up and you need to design, and it's everybody believes that design is sketching, but it's not. I mean, your software engineer is also doing design, because design is how the app works. It's how it reacts to certain things. It's how it startups. It's how it handles the data. When does it display an alert? What is shown in the alert? Everything is connected. So it's not just the designer who is actually designing things. It's how the entire thing works as a whole together. So first you need to find the entire core of the app. If it's a exercising app, then the exercise is the center of your app. If it's a to-do app, the single to-do is the center. In our case, it's this single item that they hang on the top. So you need to find the core, and then you build the design around this. Sometimes you need to also have your own ideas about certain things. It's quite fun, because again, business people tend to do things in a certain way, and it's always quite fun that you see the world from your own point of view. And sometimes you'll come up with these very cool ideas that you can save time, you can save money, and you can try to propose something like this, and most of the time, I don't know, you will always find something quite fun, quite useful in what you say. Again, always ask why when you design something, because you will come up with a design, send it back, and then they will say, oh, I don't like this, or I think this is hard. You need to ask why to adjust around that. Again, clients are not stupid. Business people are not stupid. I hear this so many times from engineers, like users are stupid. No, you are stupid because you didn't know how to make a proper software. Okay. Okay, when you design for something so complicated like this, you need to iterate really, really fast, because you need to test your ideas and see if it works out. If it didn't work out, you need to go back forth. So that's why you don't want to make any pretty designs, because you will trash them most probably. You always need to involve developers in design, because some things are just not possible to do. I don't know, some crazy wheels or whatever, or super weird navigations that you pull down, and nobody have time for this shit. Again, please don't do animations. I mean, animations have to enforce the workflow. So if you build a UI and then you look at the UI and you say, I don't understand this, and then the designers say, okay, we add this animation, and as soon as you add the animation, oh, now I understand, then this is a proper animation. But oh, this is cool if this button goes up, or this is fun when this zooms. This is bullshit. Sometimes it's not good to show business people unfinished things, because it's important for them to get the whole idea. Like, how would this tool, it's like, imagine you get a hammer, but just the handle of the hammer that looks so pretty and there's no head, or just the head without the handle. It doesn't make any sense. So you need to send them the entire hammer, even if it's a really ugly and horrible hammer, but as a whole. If the client doesn't understand something, that means you did something wrong. Just trash to your design, because you just basically did a mistake, because design is not supposed to, you're not supposed to ship manuals with your software. If somebody is confused, again, the designer is wrong. It's not the people, they're not wrong. Again, we use Sketch for everything, and if you're a developer, you know that Photoshop is really pretty shitty, and it's really quite hard to work with. Sketch is really simple to find the padding, to lay out your code and everything. And always put everything in the code and less UI, because the less UI, the simple the app is be. So you can have so much complicated logic, but the UI itself needs to almost be invisible. Okay, so we do something fun, which is called like we test the design. So you now have a design and it's almost finished, and you need to get feedback on this. So we use the tool, this like Envision app. It's quite nice. So you basically put your entire flow, and then you can try the flow like using a mirror on the phone. You can comment on items on a certain button. You can have a comment. So you can have an entire flow of conversation going around the design, and it's very easy to use. So that was, it's also quite simple for non-tech people to understand. So we were pretty happy with that. It's also easy to keep track of different things. So if a screen changed or something like this, it's quite good. It also makes it really simple for the design process when you have everything streamlined in a single place. Alright, so now you are finished the design and now you need to start implementing your app. I'm not gonna talk much about this because most of you are developers. So just talk about very simple things. So don't try to be a perfectionist, just build stuff, build them really fast and iterate really fast in the beginning. You build any kind of like in our case we do lots of physics and mathematics, and then it's super important that you do unit tests. You cannot go around this. So you need to unit test every single step, every single module, because sometimes I do this fun thing that I change one integer to a float in the app and then the entire app crashes. So testing is really important. Again, sorry about that, but avoid using non-standard stuff. Like don't make a super complicated weird architectures. Use always the stuff that are shipped with App Store and the SDK is centered around. It makes things much easier to understand and to kind of design. Try to minimize the dependency on external libraries for many reasons. That's why I also don't use CocoaPods because of that. Because it's very easy to get carried away into adding so much dependencies in your code, and then somehow you have this massive iceberg of your code, and then you don't know what happens under it. So that's usually a bad idea. It's also important that when you try to when you work on an app like this, that you need to remember that this app is used in for somebody's job. So it's like Xcode. So if you fuck up in something, the guy will not just close the app and go on. He will not be able to do that job. So it's super important that you have this in mind when you write some unit test, or you can think, oh, what if this function didn't work? What would happen to the app, for example? So maybe something, I don't know, you are trying to export something to a PDF and it doesn't work. How important is this? Should I test this, write more unit tests for this, or I shouldn't? If it's something that will break the app, then you need to, oh, I said, okay, then I need to invest more time into building unit tests for that. So we do a couple of types of testing for our apps. We do user experience testing, which is a little bit that you creep on people and what they do. There's a couple of apps that you can do this, which is, I don't remember the name, but you basically like ship something in your app and then you can record people's expressions, but this is too creepy. So just go and try to watch how people use the app. So in my case, you can see that I was just standing beside them, see how they use the app, how they navigate, what is the hard things, what are the most used screens, what is the most complicated thing they do, how do they switch between screens. And you will find that people use the iPhone in a very different way that you are used to. So some things to watch for when you're doing this kind of creeping: you need to find the most used screens in the app, and then you need to keep refining them because those are like the workhorses in the entire app. You need to find places where people try to tap many times and it doesn't work. This is also quite important. You need to find the most used elements and try to elevate this a little bit in the app. So if something you have to navigate many times to reach, just try to bring it a little bit to the front. If it's something not used, then think, oh, maybe I should remove this totally, or I should just hide it behind some setting. Again, if something is never used, most probably the answer is you remove it. It's not like to put it away or somewhere, just say, I never saw you using this. Why do you need this? Most probably you'll say, I don't know, it was like a cool idea then, but now I don't think I need it. You can usually, when you use an app, there is some certain flow for the app, so people will not pause much unless they're actually reading something or doing something. So if you find them pausing on a screen or trying to understand what's happening, that means there's something wrong with the screen. If they're a little bit angry, some people actually get angry when they're using software. I mean, I get angry when I'm using Xcode. It's quite fun when you also want to report bugs. We use a tool like Instabug. You can also build your own. I know some companies that do their own, but it's quite nice. So you basically like shake your phone or you take a screenshot, and then you will automatically get like a screen, and you can attach video. You can attach a screen flow with it. You can attach a voice note, and then once it gets added, it goes to this Instabug, and from Instabug it goes to automatically to Bitbucket, and then we get a push notification to Slack that there is a new bug. So it's quite a very nice way to do that. And then we basically attach everything to the bug report, so you can attach files. So we basically I take like a screenshot for the entire state of the app. Like before I used Instabug, I had to ask the guy, oh, do you remember what you were using, what kind of files you were using when the app broke down? But now I just basically attach the entire state of the app. So I just have a kind of a script that takes the files from the bug report and just loads them in the app, and I have an exact copy for when this crash happened or when this problem happened. This makes things like almost, there's zero friction into getting any kind of data. And when something is like this, it's quite complicated because sometimes they will hit an edge case with calculations or the physics or something like this. So this is how it looks like. I will get something like this that he will just take a screenshot, he will mark around some number and say, oh, this, I don't understand this. It's very easy like to use. And then he will just send this and that's it. Then I get a notification, there's a new bug, and I can automatically start working on it. So some tools we use Sketch for design and mockups. You can also use Keynote. Actually quite fun to do that. For websites, for the building websites, we use Webflow. It's quite, it's nice, but a little bit have a hard UI. But once you get used to the UI, it's quite nice.
For what? I didn't understand.
Just for the building website, like you have an app and you need a website for it, so it's quite nice to do that because you have like a content management for it. It's very simple that if you are like a mobile developer and you need to build a website, you don't need to bother yourself much with it. And for testing, we use InVision app and we use Instabug. So we use the InVision app for the design testing and we use Instabug for the code testing. And for the field trips, when I go also to the venues, and I actually use Instabug as well, so I could attach a picture to something. Like I notice something is wrong, or something is wrong with the app, and I use the same. So I don't actually use notes anymore. I just use this, or I use Sketch that I just mark on something that on the picture. So if you would like to start in something quite fun like this, it's always quite complicated. But if you have non-tech friends or family, try to ask them, do this kind of fun, join them on a work day if they will let you. But it's quite nice to try to see how other people do their job. And you'll always find something to fix. If it's a lawyer, you will always find that lawyers go through massive amount of emails and they will always keep dragging some files to a certain place, and they will always try to fill up some paper with the same number. So there are so much stuff that you can do, and even a simple script can be like, I don't know, like a lifesaver for people. Again, if you build a simple bot or even organizing documents or something like this, it's quite huge for people. You just need to make it in a nice, friendly way, like a nice user experience. You can also, there are lots of people that really love their job. So there are lots of, just like you're so passionate about iPhones, there are people who are passionate about other things. So you can find people that are really passionate about what they do, and you will always find them eager to push forward in their job. Some general notes about enterprise. Most people, they will not believe that you can do it because it's just, for them is like, it's just not possible. We have always been doing it like this. It cannot happen. This is also an interesting problem because when you save money and time, it's always on the expense of someone else. It's never, if you have a budget for something, let's say I'm gonna make a road trip in, I don't know, in Europe, and I try to map my fastest route to go through some certain cities. And without doing this, I will just go to the renting company and say, I think it's gonna take me 15 days. So the renting company now took 15 days rent, but now I found a software that will tell me exactly where to go and what is the best way to save gas and what's the fastest route. So I saved my money, gave it to the software, but I took it from the gas stations and I took it from the renting company. So the renting company is not gonna like you and the gas station is not gonna like you. So that's just something to keep in mind, that there will always be people pushing back because you're basically saving time from their own job. But that's like everything. It's also interesting to always try to explain to them how would software solve their problem, how much time it will solve them, how much money it will save them. It's really easier to explain software than this, because if I gave you some certain, I don't know, script and tell you, no, you run this script and it will save you, I don't know, 100 euros a day, and I would charge you 50 euros. Okay, please. So it's much easier to explain in this certain way than trying to explain benefits. Just tell them exactly, you get this, it will save you this X amount of time and it will save you this X amount of money. Fix things a little bit slowly, so don't try to push it too hard, because again, people always push back because they are not used to this certain flow you're introducing to their life. It's a bit of an alien to them. And again, same, work with people who are good in what they do, because if you work with people which are not good in what they do, it just doesn't work. Sometimes good enough is good. You don't have to be Steve Jobs. You don't have to be super precise about every single detail. If the app is stable, if it's nice, if it's something one pixel off right to the left, it's not the end of days.